Adolf Hitler is perhaps one of the most well-known and despised figures in history. His role as the leader of the Nazi Party and the architect of the Holocaust has left a dark stain on the pages of history. But as we delve deeper into his life and his rise to power, we begin to uncover a sinister secret: Hitler's links to the occult. In this documentary, we embark on a journey to unravel the mystery surrounding Hitler's fascination with the mystical and occult practices. From his early years as a struggling artist to his reign as the leader of Germany, Hitler's fascination with the supernatural played a crucial role in shaping his ideologies and actions. We will explore the hidden world of the occult that surrounded Hitler and his inner circle. We will uncover the rituals, beliefs, and practices that fueled Hitler's desire for power and control. From the mysterious Thule Society to the enigmatic Vril Society, we will leave no stone unturned in our quest to understand the influence of the occult on Hitler's psyche. It is a story of power, obsession, and manipulation. A story of a man who was not only a tyrannical dictator, but also a believer in the power of the supernatural. His obsession with the occult went beyond mere fascination, as he used it as a tool to justify his actions and manipulate the masses. But as we delve deeper, we will also explore the darker side of Hitler's obsession: his pursuit of the Holy Grail and the Spear of Destiny, both believed to possess supernatural powers. We will also examine the role of occult rituals and beliefs in Hitler's military strategies and how it ultimately led to his downfall. This documentary will take you on a thought-provoking and bone-chilling journey, uncovering the truth about Hitler's links to the occult and challenging our perceptions of one of history's most infamous men. Join us as we unravel the dark and mysterious world of Adolf Hitler and his connection to the occult. Adolf Hitler is a name that evokes strong emotions and raises several questions. Known for his role as the leader of the Nazi Party and for his brutal dictatorship, Hitler is a figure that is still heavily discussed and studied today. While there are many well-known facts about his rise to power and actions during World War II, there is another aspect of his life that is often associated with mystery and speculation: his connection to the occult. The occult refers to the supernatural or mystical beliefs and practices that are not accepted by mainstream religions or sciences. Hitler's fascination with the occult is said to have begun in his early years, and it is believed to have played a significant role in shaping his beliefs and actions throughout his life. Hitler was born in 1889 in the small town of Brunau am Inn, Austria. From a young age, he was a highly ambitious and driven individual with a strong passion for art and history. However, his dreams of becoming an artist were shattered when he was rejected from the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. This rejection sent him into a deep depression, and he moved to Vienna in hopes of pursuing his artistic career. It was during his time in Vienna, from 1908 to 1913, that Hitler's interest in the occult began to manifest. He spent much of his time in the city, living in low-cost boarding houses, and became a regular visitor to the public library. Here, he would spend hours reading books on occultism, mythology, and esoteric subjects. He also attended lectures and discussions on these topics, and it is said that his interest in the occult only grew stronger with each passing day. One of the primary reasons for Hitler's fascination with the occult was his search for meaning and purpose in life. He was obsessed with the idea of finding a higher truth, a superior order in the chaos of the world. In his early 20s, he was a struggling artist, living in poverty and struggling to make ends meet. The belief that there was a higher, mystical force controlling the universe gave him a sense of purpose and made him believe that he was part of something significant. In his search for meaning, Hitler was drawn to the writings of German mystics and philosophers such as Guido von List, Georg Lanz von Liebenfels, and Rudolf von Sebottendorf. These individuals were part of a group known as the Ariosophists, who believed in the superiority of the Aryan race and the importance of ancient Germanic traditions. Their writings fused occultism, mythology, and pseudo-history to create a narrative that glorified the German people as the chosen race destined for greatness. The Ariosophists also had a strong emphasis on the occult, believing that through ancient symbols, rituals, and practices, one could tap into powerful cosmic forces. This idea greatly appealed to Hitler, who saw himself as the chosen one, destined to lead the German people to greatness. He also believed that through the study and practice of the occult, he could gain supernatural powers and become an invincible leader, capable of achieving his ultimate goal, world domination. Hitler's interest in the occult was not limited to books and lectures. He also joined several occult groups and societies in Vienna, one of which was the Order of the New Templars. This secret society practiced rituals and ceremonies that aimed to channel divine powers and promised its members enlightenment and spiritual ascension. Despite their claims of being descendants of the original Knights Templar, the group was actually a conglomeration of various occult teachings and practices. Another significant influence on Hitler's interest in the occult was the Thule Society, a German occultist political group. Founded in 1918, the Thule Society was heavily involved in promoting the Aryan race, anti-Semitism, and German nationalism. They also had links to the German Workers' Party, later renamed the Nazi Party. Hitler himself became acquainted with Thule Society members through his involvement in the German Workers' Party, and the society's anti-Semitic and national beliefs resonated with him. One of the main ideas propagated by the Thule Society was the belief in the existence of a lost city called Thule, which was said to be the ancestral home of the Aryan race. This myth became the basis for Hitler's obsession with Atlantis, a mythical island first mentioned by the Greek philosopher Plato. Hitler believed that the people of Atlantis were an advanced Aryan race, and their knowledge and technology could be harnessed to create an empire for Germany. Hitler's interest in the occult went beyond mere fascination and curiosity. It is believed that he also practiced various rituals and ceremonies in an attempt to gain spiritual powers and connect with the mystical forces of the universe. Some reports suggest that Hitler practiced meditation, yoga, and various forms of divination, including astrology, palmistry, and tarot reading. He was also known to use an artist's brush dipped in his own blood to paint his own version of ancient pagan symbols and runes. The influence of Hitler's interest in the occult can also be seen in some of his key policies and actions as a leader. For example, during his reign, occult symbols such as the swastika and eagle were prominently used in Nazi propaganda and official emblems. The swastika in particular has a long history and has been used in various cultures as a symbol of good luck and prosperity. However, Hitler's interpretation of the symbol was heavily influenced by the Ariosophists, who saw it as a representation of Aryan heritage and power. The use of ancient symbolism and rituals can also be seen in the mass gatherings and rallies organized by the Nazi Party. These events were highly choreographed, with flags, banners, and other symbols used to create an aura of mysticism and power. The use of torches, drums, and loud chants were meant to create a sense of unity and transcendence amongst the members of the party, almost like an occult ritual. It is evident that Hitler's fascination with the occult played a significant role in shaping his beliefs and actions. It is believed that his interest in the esoteric gave him a sense of purpose and made him believe that he was part of something significant in the grand scheme of things. However, it is essential to note that Hitler's interpretation of the occult was heavily influenced by nationalist and racist ideologies, and his fascination with the esoteric ultimately led to one of the darkest periods in human history. Thus, it serves as a cautionary tale of the dangerous consequences of blindly following pseudo-scientific beliefs. Dietrich Eckart was a man who played a crucial role in shaping the beliefs and ideology of Adolf Hitler. A German nationalist, journalist, playwright, and occultist, Eckart became a close friend and mentor to Hitler in the 1920s, during the early stages of his political career. He was a prominent member of the Thule Society, a secret society that was heavily involved in occult practices and conspiracy theories. It is believed that Eckart's influence on Hitler was a major factor that led to the formation of Nazi ideology and the rise of the Third Reich. Dietrich Eckart was born on March 23, 1868, in Neumarkt, Bavaria, Germany. Eckart's mother died when he was only 10 years old, and this event had a profound impact on his young mind. He was withdrawn and introverted, and he found solace in books and poetry. As a teenager, he was deeply moved by the works of Richard Wagner and Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, and he had a passion for music and literature. This love for the arts would continue through his life and would become an integral part of his political ideology. After completing his education, Eckart went on to study law at the University of Erlangen in Bavaria. During this time, he became involved in politics and joined the Pan-German movement, which aimed to unite all German-speaking people under one flag. He also became a member of the German Youth Movement, a cultural and educational organization that promoted nationalism and traditional values. Eckart's political views were heavily influenced by the writings of Houston Stewart Chamberlain, a British-German author who believed in the superiority of the Aryan race. Chamberlain's book, The Foundations of the 19th Century, had a significant impact on Eckart and would become the basis of his own racial theories. Eckart's dislike for the legal profession led him to pursue a career in journalism. He moved to Berlin and worked for several newspapers, including the anti-Semitic newspaper Deutsches Tagesblatt. Through his work, he became known as a fiery speaker and writer, known for his brilliant use of language and passionate delivery. In the early 1900s, Eckart's interest in the occult began to grow, and he became a member of several secret societies, including the Germanen Ordem, and the Ordo Templi Orientis. However, his most significant involvement was with the Thule Society, a secret society that was founded in 1918 and was heavily involved in esotericism and occult practices. The Thule Society, also known as the German Order, was named after the mythical land of Thule, believed to be the birthplace of the Aryan race. The society's members were staunch nationalists who were dissatisfied with the outcome of World War I and the economic crisis that followed. They believed that the defeat of Germany was due to an international conspiracy led by Jews and communists. Eckhart was a prominent member of the Thule Society, and it is believed that he played a crucial role in shaping its beliefs and ideology. He was highly respected among the members and was often referred to as the spiritual guiding light of the society. He introduced Hitler to many members of the society and played a significant role in his rise to power. Eckhart's involvement in the occult extended beyond the Thule Society. He was also a member of the Society for the Study of Hinduism and Occultism, which was founded by Guido von List, a well-known occultist and initiate of the Thule Society. Eckhart's fascination with the occult was a significant part of his life, and he believed that it held the secrets to unlocking the power of the Aryan race. In 1919, Eckhart met a young Adolf Hitler at a meeting of the German Workers' Party, a political party that would later become the Nazi Party. Hitler was impressed by Eckhart's speaking abilities and his nationalist views, and the two struck up a friendship that would last until Eckhart's death. Eckhart saw potential in Hitler and took it upon himself to be his mentor, guiding and shaping his beliefs and ideology. He introduced Hitler to members of the Thule Society, including Rudolf Hess, who would become one of Hitler's closest advisors. Through Eckhart, Hitler also became introduced to the teachings of Guido von List and the Order of the New Templars, an occult group that was closely associated with the Thule Society. Eckhart's influence on Hitler's beliefs and ideology was significant. He introduced Hitler to the concept of spiritual racism, which claimed that an Aryan race was superior to all other races and had a divine destiny to rule the world. This concept would become the cornerstone of Hitler's ideology and the basis for his policies of racial purity and the elimination of inferior races. In addition to his racial theories, Eckhart also introduced Hitler to the ideas of nationalism, anti-Semitism, and anti-communism. He convinced Hitler that the only way to restore Germany's former glory was through the creation of a strong, authoritarian government and the elimination of all opposition. As Hitler rose to power, the Thule Society and its members created a crucial role in the formation and growth of the Nazi Party. Many of the party's early members were associated with the society, and its influence could be seen in the party's ideology and symbolism. The swastika, which was adopted as the party's emblem, was a symbol closely associated with the Thule Society and its belief in an Aryan master race. Eckhart's influence on Hitler extended beyond just his beliefs and ideology. He was also responsible for introducing the future dictator to several wealthy and influential supporters who provided financial assistance to the Nazi Party. Eckhart was a skilled fundraiser, and his connections with powerful businessmen and industrialists helped the party gain legitimacy and financial stability. Despite his close ties with Hitler, Eckhart often clashed with other members of the Nazi Party. He disapproved of many of their policies, including the violent tactics used by the stormtroopers and the party's anti-Christian stance. However, his loyalty to Hitler never wavered, and he continued to support him until death. Dietrich Eckart died on December 26, 1923, at the age of 55 from a heart attack. His death was a significant loss for Hitler, who considered him a friend, mentor, and father figure. After his death, Hitler wrote in his book Mein Kampf that, "I have not met a man who had a greater effect on my inner development than Dietrich Eckart." Eckart's death also had a significant impact on the Nazi Party. His funeral was a grand affair, attended by thousands of party members, and Hitler delivered a eulogy declaring Eckart a true hero of the movement. In the years following his death, many members of the party saw Eckart as a martyr and a saint, and his image was often used for propaganda purposes. Despite his influence on Hitler and the Nazi Party, Eckart's legacy is often overshadowed by his more infamous protégé. Many of his writings and lectures have been lost or destroyed, and his involvement in the occult has been largely ignored. However, his impact on Hitler and the formation of the Nazi ideology cannot be denied. Eckart's writings and beliefs were instrumental in shaping the racial and nationalistic theories that were the basis of Hitler's policies and would ultimately lead to the atrocities of the Holocaust. To understand Hitler and the occult in more depth, we need to understand the societies he was involved in. The Thule Society played a pivotal role in shaping Hitler's worldview and laying the foundation for the rise of the Nazi Party. The Thule Society, also known as Thule Gesellschaft, was a secret organization that was founded in 1918 Rudolf von Sebottendorf in Munich, Germany. The society was named after the mythical world of Thule, believed to be the ancient home of the Aryan race. Its members believed in the superiority of the Aryan race, and their main goal was to promote anti-Semitism and establish the Aryan race as the dominant race in Europe. The society also held beliefs in the occult and ancient Germanic paganism, and saw themselves as the guardians of this ancient knowledge. They attracted many members from the upper echelons of German society, including industrialists, aristocrats, and influential politicians. But perhaps the most notable member of the Thule Society was none other than Adolf Hitler himself. It is believed that Hitler joined the society in 1919 and attended their meetings regularly. It was a crucial period in Hitler's life, and it was during this time that he was beginning to develop his anti-Semitic beliefs and charismatic leadership style. One of the key ways in which the Thule Society influenced Hitler was through their anti-Semitic propaganda. The Thule Society believed in the stab-in-the-back theory, which claimed that Germany's defeat in World War I was a result of the betrayal by the Jews and other minority groups within the country. This belief played a significant role in shaping Hitler's worldview and fueling his hatred towards the Jewish community. Hitler adopted this narrative and used it to rally his followers and blame the Jews for all of Germany's problems. In addition to promoting anti-Semitism, the Thule Society also had a strong interest in the occult and esoteric teachings. They believed in the existence of a secret brotherhood of ancient Germanic philosophers called the Black Sun, who possessed hidden knowledge and mystical powers. This idea of a secret society with ancient knowledge fascinated Hitler and further fueled his belief in a superior Aryan race. The Thule Society also promoted the idea of creating a new religion based on a mix of ancient Germanic paganism and Christianity, which resonated with Hitler's desire to create a new order and establish himself as a quasi-religious figure. The Thule Society also played a significant role in the development of Hitler's political ideology. The society believed in the concept of Volkisch, which translated to people's community, and emphasized the importance of ethnic purity and racial superiority. This idea was in line with Hitler's belief in the Aryan race and his desire to create a racially pure society. The Thule Society also promoted the idea of a strong leader who would lead the people towards a better future, which resonated with Hitler's desire for power and control. Moreover, the Thule Society's influence on Hitler can also be seen in the symbolism and rituals of the Nazi Party. As we know, the swastika, which became the symbol of the Nazi Party, was originally an ancient symbol used by the Thule Society and other occult groups. The society also held secret rituals and ceremonies that involved the use of symbols and gestures reminiscent of ancient Germanic paganism, which Hitler incorporated into the Nazi Party's traditions and ceremonies. Although the Thule Society's influence on Hitler and the Nazi Party is undeniable, it is essential to note that not all of Hitler's views and beliefs aligned with those of the society. For example, the Thule Society had a strong aversion to Christianity, while Hitler used the Christian Church, especially the German Protestant Church, to his advantage. Hitler also had a strong sense of nationalism, whereas the Thule Society promoted a pan-Germanic ideology. The rise of the Nazi Party and Hitler's ascent to power can also be attributed to the Thule Society's influence on German culture and society at the time. The society's ideas of racial purity and superiority had a significant impact on the masses, especially those who were disillusioned and looking for someone to blame for Germany's defeat in World War I and the economic turmoil that followed. Hitler used these sentiments to his advantage and tapped into the growing nationalist and anti-Semitic sentiment in Germany, which enabled him to gain widespread support. As Hitler's political career gained momentum, so did his interest in the occult. One of the most significant occult beliefs that shaped Hitler's ideology was the concept of the master race. This belief held that the Aryan race was the most spiritually advanced and had special abilities, making them destined to rule over other races. This belief can be seen in Hitler's speeches and writings, where he often talked about the superiority of the Aryan race and the need to purify the German people by eliminating those he deemed inferior. Hitler's fascination with the occult also extended to ancient Germanic and Nordic mythology. He believed that these ancient civilizations held secrets to unlocking supernatural powers and advanced technologies. This belief influenced the Nazis' obsession with the city of Atlantis and their search for artifacts and relics in the hope of gaining access to its power. After Hitler rose to power, his interest in the occult only grew stronger, and he surrounded himself with like-minded individuals. One of his closest associates was Heinrich Himmler, the leader of the SS, who shared Hitler's interest in the occult and ancient mythology. Himmler formed the Ahnenerbe, a research organization dedicated to studying ancient civilizations and their connection to the Aryan race. The Ahnenerbe conducted archaeological expeditions in search of evidence to support their beliefs, and also performed rituals and ceremonies to honor their ancestors and invoke their power. The use of occult symbolisms and rituals by the Nazi Party was not limited to their political events and ceremonies. In fact, it was a widespread presence in the daily lives of party members. They used runes, ancient symbols with magical significance, to communicate and identify with their beliefs. The most common of these was the Sig rune, which was associated with victory and power. Another significant example of the use of occultism by the Nazi Party was the construction of the Nuremberg Rally Grounds, where Hitler held his infamous rallies. The design of the rally grounds was heavily influenced by ancient Greek and Roman architecture, with specific features linked to occult symbolism. The most striking of these was the Zeppelin Field, which represented a sun wheel, a symbol often associated with Nazi ideology. The use of occultism by the Nazi Party was not just for show. Hitler genuinely believed in its power and relied on it to achieve success. He viewed himself as a kind of messianic figure and believed that he was destined to bring about a new age of power and dominance for the Aryan race. He often used occult rituals and ceremonies to enhance his image and gain support from his followers. However, despite Hitler's unwavering belief in the occult and its power, it ultimately did not bring the desired results. In fact, some historians argue that his obsession with the occult and his belief in its supernatural power may have led to critical strategic mistakes that ultimately contributed to the downfall of the Nazi regime. The concept of the Aryan race has been a controversial topic throughout history, and it continues to be a source of fascination and debate even today. The notion of the Aryan race traces back to the late 19th century, when European countries were experiencing a surge in nationalism and a desire for racial purity. As Europe was caught up in the Industrial Revolution, traditional values were being challenged, and people were looking for a way to reclaim their sense of identity and superiority. It was during this time that the belief in the existence of a superior Aryan race gained prominence. The term Aryan is derived from the Sanskrit word Arya, meaning noble or respectable. It was initially used to refer to the ancient Indo-Iranian people who migrated from Central Asia to the Indian subcontinent. However, in the late 19th century, the term Aryan was appropriated by German nationalists and later by the Nazis to refer to a supposedly superior race of people. The concept of the Aryan race was heavily influenced by the ideas of Gobineau, a French aristocrat and writer who believed in the existence of a hierarchy of races, with the Aryan race at the top. According to Gobineau, the Aryan race had originated in Northern Europe and was the purest and most advanced race, while other races were inferior and destined for extinction. Gobineau's ideas were further developed by Houston Stewart Chamberlain, a British-born German philosopher who believed that the Aryan race was not just physically superior, but also had a superior spiritual and moral character. He believed that the Aryan race was the creator race and had given birth to all the great civilizations of the world. However, it was not until the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party in Germany that the concept of the Aryan race gained widespread acceptance and became a fundamental part of their ideology. Hitler and other top Nazi leaders, including Heinrich Himmler and Alfred Rosenberg, were heavily influenced by the occult and esoteric teachings, which linked the Aryan race to ancient Germanic mythology. One of the key figures in the development of the Aryan race concept within the Nazi Party was Alfred Rosenberg, who was appointed by Hitler as the chief theorist of the Nazi Party. Rosenberg believed that the Aryan race was a spiritually superior race with a divine mission to rule the world. He went as far as to say that other races, particularly the Jews, were subhumans and a threat to the purity and superiority of the Aryan race. Rosenberg and other Nazi leaders used the concept of the Aryan race to justify their policies of racial purity and the persecution of Jews and other minority groups. They believed that by eliminating these lesser races, they would be fulfilling their divine mission in creating a world dominated by the superior Aryan race. To further reinforce their beliefs, the Nazis also looked to ancient Germanic mythology for validation. They saw themselves as the descendants of ancient Germanic gods and linked the Aryan race to these mythological figures. In particular, they glorified the figure of Odin, the god of war, wisdom, and magic, who was seen as the embodiment of Aryan ideals. The obsession with the purity of the Aryan race led the Nazis to implement their eugenics and racial policies, which aimed at creating a genetically superior Aryan population. This included forced sterilizations of undesirable individuals and the extermination of millions of Jews, Romas, and other perceived inferior races in what became known as the Holocaust. Despite the ultimate downfall of the Nazi Party and the exposure of the horrors of the Holocaust, the concept of the Aryan race continued to have repercussions for the years to come. The Nuremberg laws, which defined and enforced racial segregation in Nazi Germany, were heavily influenced by the idea of the Aryan race and remained in force until the end of World War II. Furthermore, the legacy of the Aryan race continues to impact modern-day fascist and white supremacist groups, who still hold the belief in the superiority of the Aryan race. In 2017, Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, where far-right groups chanted "Blood and Soil," a slogan which ties to Nazi ideology, is one such example. The idea of the Aryan race has continued to be used by extremist groups to justify their actions and perpetuate hatred and violence towards minority groups. However, it is essential to note that the concept of the Aryan race has been thoroughly debunked by scientists and historians. DNA evidence has shown that there is no biological basis for different races, and the idea of a superior Aryan race is nothing more than a myth. The Aryan race concept also sparked backlash from scholars and activists who argued against the inherent racism and discrimination that it promoted. In the mid-20th century, the term Aryan was phased out of academic and scientific use due to its fraught history and associations with Nazi ideology. Nevertheless, this fascination with the Aryan race and its supposed superiority continues to persist. Movies, books, and other forms of media have perpetuated the image of blonde-haired, blue-eyed Aryans as the ideal master race. This perpetuation of the Aryan race myth has deep-rooted historical and social implications, as it reinforces the notion of racial superiority and division. It is a stark reminder of the dangers of embracing false ideologies and the devastating consequences of racism and hatred. But what about actual occult objects instead of philosophies? The story of Hitler and the Spear of Destiny is one that is shrouded in mystery and intrigue. For many years, there has been speculation surrounding the infamous spear that supposedly pierced the side of Jesus during the crucifixion, also known as the Spear of Destiny. Some believe that this spear holds immense power and has the ability to bestow invincibility on whoever possesses it. It is said that Adolf Hitler was one of those who believed in the power of this ancient artifact. The Spear of Destiny, also known as the Holy Lance or Spear of Longinus, is a sacred relic that has been a subject of much debate and fascination throughout history. According to religious texts, the spear was used by the Roman soldier Longinus to pierce the side of Jesus while he was on the cross. It is believed that the blood of Christ flowed down the spear and imbued it with mystical powers. The spear then passed down through the hands of various rulers and leaders and eventually ended up in the possession of the Holy Roman Emperors. The first recorded mention of the Spear of Destiny dates back to the 10th century in the writings of Saint Gregory of Tours. From then on, it became a coveted item among monarchs and conquerors, with many claiming to possess the real spear. However, it was not until the 12th century that the spear appeared in the annals of history once again. It was then that historian Otto von Friesing claimed that the spear was in the possession of Charlemagne, the first Holy Roman Emperor. The spear became an important symbol for the Holy Roman Empire and was passed down from one emperor to another. Fast forward to the 20th century, and the world was in the midst of the Second World War. Adolf Hitler had risen to power in Germany and was on a mission to conquer Europe and establish the Third Reich. But Hitler's ambitions did not stop there. He was obsessed with the idea of creating a world empire and believed that he was the chosen one to fulfill this destiny. It was during this time that Hitler's fixation with the Spear of Destiny came to light. Hitler believed in the power of ancient artifacts. He had a team of archaeologists and historians dedicated to finding such relics, and the Spear of Destiny was at the top of his list. According to his beliefs, possessing the spear would give him invincible power and help him achieve his goals of world domination. He even went as far as to say that whoever possessed the spear would be able to control the fate of the world. In 1938, Hitler's troops marched into Austria and seized the Spear of Destiny from the Hofburg treasury, where it was on display. It was said that when Hitler came into possession of the spear, he exclaimed, "I have it now. At last, I have the Spear of Destiny." It is also believed that Hitler held a secret ceremony where he gazed upon the spear, hoping to be imbued with its powers. After obtaining the spear, Hitler reportedly carried it with him wherever he went, even to the battlefield. He believed that it brought him good luck, and without it, he would be vulnerable to his enemies. However, Hitler's obsession with the spear did not bring him the success he had hoped for. In fact, it is said that after the spear came into his possession, his military campaigns began to suffer defeats. Despite Hitler's best efforts, the tide of the war turned against him. In April 1945, as Allied forces closed in on Berlin, Hitler reportedly ordered the spear to be hidden away to prevent it from falling into the hands of the enemy. However, the spear was discovered by American soldiers and returned to Austria, where it remained for many years before being put on display once again. The story of Hitler's obsession with the Spear of Destiny has sparked many debates and theories. Some believe that the power of the spear was simply a myth, and that Hitler's beliefs were nothing more than delusions. Others say the spear did possess some hidden powers, but they were not strong enough to aid in Hitler's quest for world domination. Whatever the truth may be, the fact remains that Hitler's belief in the power of the spear had a significant impact on his actions and decisions during the war. But Hitler was also fascinated with certain spiritual groups, such as Tibetan monks. This fascination with Tibetan monks and their rituals had a profound influence on Hitler and shaped his ideology. The origins of Hitler's interest in Tibet can be traced back to the late 1920s. It is said that a book by German philosopher Ernst Schaeffer, In the Land of the Gods, sparked Hitler's curiosity about Tibet and its people. Schaeffer, who was part of an expedition to Tibet, wrote about his encounters with the Tibetan monks and their mysterious rituals. Hitler soon became fixated on the idea of gaining access to the ancient knowledge and secrets of the Tibetan monks. He saw himself as a messianic figure with a divine purpose to unite and lead the Aryan race towards world domination. He believed that the Tibetan monks held the key to achieving his goal. In his mind, the monks were not only spiritually advanced, but also possessed hidden powers and knowledge that could help him achieve his ambitions. He saw the monks as the perfect embodiment of his ideals of purity, strength, and discipline. To further his understanding of Tibetan practices, Hitler commissioned a delegation of SS officers led by Karl Haushofer to travel to Tibet and study under the guidance of the monks. Haushofer, a fervent believer in the existence of an Aryan race, saw the trip as an opportunity to validate Hitler's theories and gain access to the supposed mystical powers of the monks. The journey was also seen as a way to strengthen ties between Nazi Germany and Tibet. The delegation arrived in Tibet in 1939 and spent 6 months studying under the guidance of the monks. They learned about Tibetan Buddhism, its rituals and practices, such as meditation and yoga. The SS officers also became fascinated with the concept of the third eye and the belief that it could grant them special powers and insight. They returned to Germany with a newfound reverence for Tibet and its people, and Haushofer even went on to publish a book titled Geopolitics of the Pacific Ocean, which reflected his new admiration for Tibetan culture. But it wasn't just the spiritual practices and rituals that intrigued Hitler. He was also drawn to the political system of Tibet, which was a theocracy led by the Dalai Lama. Hitler saw this as a perfect example of a strong and unified leader at the head of a pure and superior race. He even expressed his admiration for the Dalai Lama, stating that he was a wise ruler and a great spiritual leader. This admiration soon turned into a desire to establish a similar system of government in Nazi Germany, with himself as the supreme leader. The influence of Tibetan monks on Hitler's ideology and actions can also be seen in his policies towards other religions. The Nazis persecuted and executed millions of Jews, considering them inferior and a threat to the Aryan race. They also targeted other religions and minority groups, such as Catholics, Romani people, and homosexuals. The hatred towards these groups stemmed from Hitler's belief in a pure Aryan race, with no room for other religions and beliefs. Furthermore, Hitler's belief in the existence of a superior race also led him to his interests in eugenics, a pseudoscience that aimed to improve the genetic quality of the human population through selective breeding. He believed that by eliminating those he deemed inferior, he could create a perfect race, just like the monks who practiced selective breeding to maintain the purity of the Tibetan race. These extreme ideologies were a direct result of Hitler's fascination with the Tibetan monks. But the influence of the Tibetan monks on Hitler's ideology did not end with his death. After the fall of Nazi Germany, a group called Ahnenerbe emerged, claiming to carry on Hitler's legacy, continuing his fascination with Tibetan practices and beliefs. This group believed that the Germans were the descendants of an ancient Aryan race originating in Tibet, and that through the study of the monks and their practices, they could regain their lost purity and power. The legacy of Hitler's fascination with Tibetan monks continues to this day, with the rise of neo-Nazi and white supremacist groups, who also subscribe to the idea of racial purity and superiority. These groups often use symbols and practices borrowed from the Tibetan monks, such as the swastika, which is believed to have originated from the Buddhist symbol of good fortune. This appropriation of Tibetan culture and beliefs by hate groups only serves to further demonstrate the extent of Hitler's fascination with the monks and their practices. As we have seen, the rise of Nazi Germany under the leadership of Adolf Hitler was marked by an insidious obsession with race and the belief in the superiority of the Aryan race. As the Nazi regime gained power in the 1930s, Hitler and his inner circle sought to solidify this belief by conducting research into ancient civilizations and the occult. Out of this desire was born the Ahnenerbe Institute, a research organization tasked with legitimizing Nazi ideology through the pursuit of esoteric knowledge. One of the most infamous departments of the Ahnenerbe was the Department of Occultism, also known as the Witch's Kitchen. This department was headed by Wolfram Sievers, a close associate of Himmler and dedicated Nazi. The department was responsible for investigating paranormal phenomena, conducting experiments on humans and animals, and researching the power of the occult. The department also oversaw the exploitation of concentration camp prisoners for medical experiments, using them as test subjects for pseudoscientific studies on the effects of hypothermia, high altitude, and other conditions. The Ahnenerbe Institute was also actively involved in missions to search for evidence of ancient civilizations and their connections to the Aryan race. The Ahnenerbe also sponsored an expedition to Antarctica in search of ancient artifacts and evidence of the Aryan race. The expedition, led by renowned German explorer Alfred Richer, was the largest and most expensive of all the Ahnenerbe's missions. It was hoped that this expedition would uncover evidence of the existence of the lost continent of Atlantis, a legendary civilization believed to be the cradle of the Aryan race. However, the expedition ended in failure, with no evidence of Atlantis or any ancient civilization being found. Despite the failures of these expeditions, the Ahnenerbe was highly successful in acquiring artifacts from other countries through looting and theft. The Institute had close ties with the SS and Nazi Party, which allowed them to plunder museums, libraries, and private collections in countries occupied by the Nazis. Many of these stolen artifacts were used to create false connections between the Aryan race and ancient civilizations to support Nazi ideology. While its main focus was on promoting the superiority of the Aryan race, the Ahnenerbe was also involved in several other projects. The Institute was responsible for creating a database of Jews and other undesirables in order to facilitate their elimination. They also conducted research on sterilization and euthanasia, which later formed the basis for Nazis' eugenics programs. As the tide of World War II started to turn against the Nazis, the Ahnenerbe's activities became more extreme and desperate. In 1943, Himmler ordered the development of a weapon of revenge, which would use supernatural forces to defeat the enemy. Led by Otto Skorzeny, an SS officer with a deep interest in the occult, the Institute conducted experiments on psychic warfare and tried to develop supernatural technologies that would give the Nazis an edge in the war. These efforts were futile and ultimately led to the downfall of the Ahnenerbe and the Nazi regime. At the end of World War II, many members of the Ahnenerbe, including its director, Wolfram Sievers, were arrested and tried for war crimes. Himmler committed suicide before he could stand trial, and the Institute was officially disbanded. However, much of the research and knowledge that was acquired by the Ahnenerbe was not destroyed and would continue to influence various fringe groups and conspiracy theories in the decades to come. Now we turn to the use of the occult in propaganda in Nazi Germany. The use of propaganda has been a powerful tool throughout history, and perhaps one of the most notorious examples of its use was during the rise of Nazi Germany in the 1930s and 1940s. The Nazi Party, under the leadership of Adolf Hitler, utilized various forms of propaganda to manipulate and control the German people, ultimately leading to their rise to power and the atrocities of the Holocaust. One aspect of this propaganda machine that is often overlooked is the use of occult symbols and ideas to further their agenda. The term occult refers to practices and beliefs that are considered supernatural, mystical, or magical. In the context of Nazi Germany, it encompassed a wide range of ideologies and practices, from ancient Germanic paganism to esoteric beliefs in Aryan superiority. The Nazis saw the occult as a tool to legitimize their ideology and provide a sense of mysticism and grandeur to their cause. One of the most prominent examples of this is the use of the swastika, an ancient symbol that has existed in various cultures for thousands of years. In Nazi Germany, it was adopted as the primary symbol of the regime and was prominently displayed on the party flag, uniforms, and propaganda posters. Hitler, in his autobiography Mein Kampf, described the swastika as a symbol of the fight for victory of the Aryan man, and used it as a way to connect his movement to a perceived ancient glorious past. The swastika wasn't the only symbol used in Nazi propaganda. The rune system, a set of ancient symbols associated with Norse mythology, was also heavily utilized. The most well-known of these is the Sig rune, which was used by the SS and still could be seen today in neo-Nazi and white supremacist imagery. The use of these ancient symbols served to create a sense of continuity and legitimacy for the Nazi Party, connecting their ideology to a distant past. Beyond symbols, occult beliefs and practices were also incorporated into Nazi propaganda. One notable example is the concept of blood and soil, or Blut und Boden in German. This ideology, popularized by Nazi ideologue Richard Walter Dahr, emphasized the importance of a connection to the land and bloodline in creating a pure, superior race. This belief was used to justify the displacement and genocide of other groups, such as Jews, who were seen as a threat to the purity of the German race. The use of occult imagery and beliefs was not limited to propaganda within Germany. The Nazis also utilized these elements to spread their message internationally, particularly in countries with significant German populations. For example, in the United States, the Nazi Party created the German-American Bund, which used occult symbols and imagery as a way to gather support for the Nazi cause. They even held rallies that featured torchlit processions and speeches focused on the superiority of the Aryan race. The Nazis also took advantage of the burgeoning interest in the occult in popular culture at the time. Books, magazines, and films about supernatural and mystical phenomena were gaining popularity, and the Nazi Party saw an opportunity to exploit this interest. A particularly famous example of this is the film Triumph of the Will, directed by Leni Riefenstahl, which heavily features occult imagery and rituals to glorify the Nazi Party and create a sense of awe and power. The use of the occult in Nazi propaganda was not only limited to visual imagery. The Nazis also incorporated occult practices into their rallies and events. For instance, the infamous Nuremberg rallies, with thousands of attendees, were said to have had a ritualistic atmosphere, with torchlight processions, massive crowds chanting in unison, and Hitler's dramatic speeches creating an almost mystical experience for those in attendance. This was all part of the propaganda machine, using occult practices to create a sense of unity and power amongst the German people. The Nazis also attempted to create a new religion, blending elements of Christianity with their ideology. This new religion, known as Positive Christianity, was intended to replace traditional Christian beliefs with those that aligned with Nazi ideology. Occult symbols and concepts were intertwined with this new religion, further embedding these ideas into the minds of the people. But why did the Nazis feel that incorporating occult elements into their propaganda was necessary? It could be argued that the use of the occult was a deliberate strategy to manipulate and control the German people. By tapping into a sense of pride and mysticism, the Nazis were able to create a sense of superiority and purpose amongst the German population, even in the face of defeat and hardship. The belief in the power of the occult also fed into the idea of German exceptionalism and the notion that the Aryan race was destined for greatness. Additionally, the use of the occult in propaganda helped to create a cult-like following for Adolf Hitler. Many Germans saw him as a messiah figure, with some even believing that he was divinely chosen or had supernatural powers. This belief further cemented his position as a powerful leader and allowed him to maintain control over the German people. The incorporation of occult elements in Nazi propaganda also had a psychological effect on the population. The use of ancient symbols and rituals gave a sense of antiquity and legitimacy to the Nazi Party, making it seem like they were part of a grand historical tradition. This created a sense of awe and reverence towards the party and its leaders, making it easier for them to manipulate and control the people. The use of the occult in Nazi propaganda played a significant role in the rise of the Nazi Party and its hold over the German people. Symbols, beliefs, and practices associated with the occult were used as a means to legitimize their ideology, create a sense of superiority and unity amongst the population, and manipulate their beliefs and actions. It is a stark reminder of the power of propaganda in shaping the course of history and the dangers of using ancient beliefs and symbols for political gain. But in early 1945, it was clear that Germany was losing the war. The Allied forces were advancing from the west, while the Soviet Union was closing from the east. Hitler, who had always been heavily involved in military strategy, refused to accept defeat and continued to demand that his troops continue fighting, even as they faced Soviet tanks rolling into Berlin. In April 1945, Hitler retreated into his bunker in Berlin, and as the Soviet army closed in, he committed suicide on April 30th. A week later, Germany surrendered unconditionally, signaling the end of the Third Reich. The death toll of the Second World War was catastrophic, with an estimated 60 million people losing their lives. The downfall of the Third Reich was a relief for those who had suffered under its oppressive rule, but it also had significant consequences for Germany. The country was left in ruins, both physically and morally. The Nuremberg trials were held, where high-ranking Nazi officials were tried for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and crimes against peace. Germany was also divided into 4 occupation zones, with the Soviet Union controlling the east, and the United States, Great Britain, and France controlling the west. This division eventually led to the Cold War, as ideological differences between the Soviet Union and Western powers emerged. While these tactics may have seemed effective in the short term, they ultimately proved to be detrimental to the Nazi Party. The use of the occult in politics not only alienated many of their own members who did not believe in such practices, but also created suspicion and mistrust among their allies. Furthermore, the Nazi Party's reliance on the occult created a false sense of superiority and invincibility. This led them to make reckless decisions, such as declaring war on multiple fronts and attempting to conquer the Soviet Union, ultimately leading to their downfall. Moreover, Hitler's obsession with the occult also diverted his attention and resources away from more practical matters. His efforts were often focused on trying to find mythical artifacts and relics, such as the Holy Grail or the Spear of Destiny, instead of focusing on the war effort. In the end, the use of the occult in politics proved to be more of a hindrance than a help to the Nazi Party. The belief in their own superiority and the reliance on supernatural forces led to poor decision-making and a false sense of security. It also created division within the party and weakened their alliances. Furthermore, the association with the occult has left a stain on the Nazi Party, forever linking them with the atrocities committed during the Holocaust. The use of occult symbols and practices in their propaganda has also been used as evidence of their corrupt and twisted ideology. The use of occult in politics did not benefit the Nazi Party. In fact, it may have ultimately contributed to their downfall. History has shown that relying on supernatural forces and beliefs can be a dangerous and misguided tactic. It is a reminder that leaders must be grounded in reality and focused on practical matters rather than relying on mystical beliefs and symbols. The Third Reich's lasting legacy is one of horror, destruction, and evil. The atrocities committed during this regime have left a lasting impact on the world, and the memory of the Holocaust continues to be a stark reminder of the consequences of unchecked hate and prejudice.